Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack the invisible global governance that's working to keep the internet safe, all without sacrificing your fundamental rights as an end user. Every single day, you navigate a digital ecosystem that relies on a really delicate balance of trust and stability. Today, we're zooming in on a massive shift, the move from voluntary best practices to strict, binding rules in the fight against domain name system or DNS abuse. This is the story of how global network operators are coordinating to protect you from systemic risks. So, let's get right into it.
Okay, here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover understanding DNS abuse basics, new rules, real teeth, measuring enforcement success, balancing security and user rights, and finally, future policy and strategy.
Section 1. Understanding DNS Abuse Basics. The threats lurking in the network of networks.
The internet is fundamentally a decentralized network of networks, right? It thrives on open cooperation, but that same openness absolutely requires shared security to protect users like you. For the longest time, defining the exact threats was actually heavily debated. But landmark agreements in April 2024 finally gave us a strict, actionable definition of DNS abuse. It's no longer just some vague operational headache, it is a highly specific policy imperative.
So what exactly are we defending against here? Well, we're looking at 5 core technical threats that directly target the data and safety of everyday internet users. We've got malware, botnets, phishing, and farming. And notice that 5th one, spam. It's really important to note that spam is only classified as DNS abuse under these rules when it's specifically used as a delivery mechanism for the other 4 categories. Like, if someone just sends you 50 emails trying to sell you a discount mattress, that's annoying for sure, but it's not DNS abuse. This super narrow, focused definition ensures that security actions target actual systemic harm rather than getting bogged down in general content disputes.
Section 2. New rules, real teeth. The shift to binding contractual obligations.
On April 5, 2024, everything changed. Global governance shifted from basically relying on voluntary best practices to enforcing binding contracts through a new actionable evidence standard. By codifying these requirements, ICANN contractual compliance finally got the teeth it needed to enforce mandatory security standards across all generic top-level domains. Contracted parties are now legally mandated to move promptly when they get actionable evidence, meaning, enough clear information for a provider to make a reasonable determination that abuse is actually occurring. Once it's verified, they have to mitigate it. And that can mean anything from notifying the registrant to just directly suspending the domain.
Section 3. Measuring enforcement success. The June 2026 scorecard.
Let's look at the actual data from the first 2 years of these new rules to see if this whole accountability model is actually working. Over 25,000. Just let that massive number sink in. That represents the total abusive domains successfully mitigated through direct investigation between April 2024 and April 2026. ICANN compliance initiated 530 investigations and resolved 480 of them, resulting in over 25,000 direct takedowns. This data strongly suggests that the new standard is definitely driving real accountability. Breaking that mitigation data down a bit, the vast majority, 66%, were direct suspensions. That basically means cutting off the domain entirely. Meanwhile, 8% utilized disruption measures for more complex scenarios, like when a domain is compromised rather than purely malicious. That gives us a really clear picture of how providers are actually responding on the ground. The remaining 26% involved other tailored mitigation strategies.
Now, this full scorecard not only proves the direct wins, but it also reveals an incredible ripple effect. Because of the pressure from these direct compliance investigations, providers were literally forced to implement enhanced internal systems. And as a result, those systemic improvements mitigated hundreds of thousands of additional domains, well beyond the initial 25,000 targeted by direct cases. Honestly, it's a massive win for internet end users.
Section 4. Balancing security and user rights. The blunt instrument and collateral damage.
Taking down a threat quickly is absolutely necessary, yes, but it acts as a very blunt instrument. To understand why, think about this distinction. On one side, we have malicious registrations. These are domains created from scratch by bad actors solely to cause harm. Shutting them down? Easy. But on the other side, we have compromised legitimate domains. Imagine your legitimate small business website gets taken completely offline, including all your email services, just because one single subpage was hacked. This sets up the massive collateral damage innocent registrants face simply because registries generally only have the power to operate at that broader second-level domain.
This balancing act is absolutely critical. Rapid, automated security interventions must not trample your fundamental digital rights. We are dealing with serious privacy and data protection issues where GDPR rules make identifying registrants super complicated. We have freedom of expression concerns, where legitimate speech risks being silenced through overblocking. And crucially, we have due process. As mitigation becomes more and more automated, robust recourse mechanisms are absolutely paramount for procedural fairness, so innocent users can actually challenge erroneous takedowns.
Section 5. Future Policy and Strategy. Closing the gaps and the CARF debate.
To protect end users without overstepping, the community has prioritized some narrowly scoped policies to close immediate loopholes. Let's dive into how this builds a stronger defense. These two immediate interventions represent a total paradigm shift from a reactive per-domain model to a proactive per-registrant model. First, associated domain checks. This means if a registrar catches abuse on one domain, they must investigate other domains registered by that exact same malicious actor. Second, restricting API access. This adds proactive friction to bulk registration tools, basically slowing down the automated deployment of abusive infrastructure at the source until an identity is verified.
Looking a bit further ahead, the Governmental Advisory Committee, or GAC, is insisting on addressing some major long-term gaps. The current contractual limits simply don't reach far enough yet. Their priorities include encouraging real-time, proactive monitoring, ensuring registration data accuracy, and codifying responsibilities for subdomain abuse. They also really want centralized coordination for domain generation algorithm, or DGA, botnet attacks, which frequently span across multiple different registrars and registries.
And that specific need for coordination brings us to a massive institutional debate currently dividing the community. Standardizing how we report abuse across a highly fragmented global ecosystem is tough. So the real question is, should we standardize abuse reporting through a centralized entity known as the Common Abuse Response Facilitator, or CARF, or should we rely on decentralized tools?
Here's how this debate breaks down. The CARF model proposes a neutral, nonprofit entity to harmonize what actually counts as actionable evidence, routing reports directly to the right provider to reduce friction and speed up response times. Sounds great, right? But critics of this model argue that because CARF would be voluntary, corporate self-interest might lead providers to just ignore it, making it a costly, toothless intermediary. Instead, these dissenters favor either legally mandatory centralized complaint portals managed directly by ICANN or leaning into existing decentralized market-driven tools like the NetBeacon Institute, which uses transparency to drive faster mitigation.
The resolution of this debate will fundamentally shape the stability and security of the Internet naming system. So, as we conclude this explainer, I'll leave you with this provocative thought to consider. Does the future of your internet safety and the protection of your digital rights ultimately rely on a strict centralized mandate, or can we trust in the power of decentralized global cooperation? It's a massive question the digital world is going to have to answer soon. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the vital mechanics of internet governance.